Welcome to the Mojo Market Report. Here's your hosts, Dave Sturchio and Chris Gueci.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Mojo Market Report. I am your host. We are your hosts, Dave Sturchio, Chris Gueci, and of course, A5 Anthony behind the glass. It is a Tuesday morning. I'm running on complete fumes right now because of the fact that I got home around 1 a.m. From MetLife Stadium, 2 days in a row, by the way, at MetLife Stadium. I don't think I'll ever do that again. One, because the schedules will never line up that way. I feel it was weird. Well, A, we were there for Mojo on Sunday, but then B, yesterday, the Dallas Cowboys took care of the New York Football Giants. So I'm very happy about that. Obviously, I know there's a lot of people watching right now that probably aren't very happy with the result, one of them being behind the glass as well. Everybody stayed up late for a snoozer until second half. Things kind of turned around a little bit. Got ourselves a little bit of a,
that first half was brutal, but it got going a little bit. But you expected that.
Well, it's a good thing I missed the first quarter, considering it took me 3 hours to get into the stadium.
You left at rush hour to go to I was like, what's Dave thinking? I would have been gone 2 hours, but I would have been in the stadium.
Well, I had
in my seat.
I had to there's moving parts
in the parking lot. I would have been in the parking lot.
Yeah, well, I tried. All I know is I got there, and the first thing we saw was a Tony Pollard break-off run as soon as I got to my seat, and I was like, okay, finally something happened. But yes, the Cowboys get it done, and they move to 2-1 on the season as the undefeated Giants are no more, and they come back to a little bit back to reality last night as they move to 2-1 as well. And of course, the Eagles, who we talked about yesterday, are sitting up top. They're pretty on their porch at 3-0. So. Yeah. NFC East will be fun.
Jalen Hurts is the biggest riser out of all quarterbacks this season. Did you hear that?
I did hear
that.
See that?
Yeah.
I read that. Mojo.com. Yeah. So, listen, I invested in that.
I know.
I invested in him. I've done a lot of good things at the Mojo Market Report so far, and I want to pat myself on the back for not always being like a market guy. Like in the regular, normal stock market, I know things, right? And my father and bonus
this
mom.
This is day two. Remember, guys, yesterday where I said Dave, he's like, a little humble brag. This is day two consecutive, 2 consecutive days of a humble brag.
Hey, listen.
But hey, when your Mojo stock.
When
portfolio is on its way up, it's a good feeling.
It's surging right now. Speaking of surging, it's the top movers of yesterday. So obviously, things always when the games are being played, there's movement live in real time as it's happening on the Mojo app. I was obviously tracking that as well with a couple of my investments or a couple of numbers I wanted to see because we got an email from Mojo right before the game on our way in because I had so much time to kill. I saw that there was an email about all the multipliers. And before we get into the actual top movers of the game, you gotta I've understood them now a little bit, but multipliers, we've been talking about it. Chris, explain to the masses, if people are going into this Mojo app for the first time and they're about to get a free multiplier on the market, what does that even mean?
The multipliers essentially go like this. So you could multiply up to 15 times, and you really don't want to. You want to avoid using the multipliers potentially on these lower shared price guys. But a guy like a Tom Brady, it's not really much fun because there's not much going forward to bank on. He's only going to probably play this season. So how much more is he going to earn? Not much. But you could still increase the volatility because if Brady moves 1% and you multiply it by 15%, what do you think happens, Dave?
It becomes 15% higher.
It becomes 15%. So if Tom Brady has himself a day and he goes up 1%, but you got a 15-time multiplier on Brady, you get a 15% return.
So are you saying that more or less this is more of a older veteran type play?
No, because
I did throw a couple on there on like a Jalen Hurts.
I put a multiplier on Justin Herbert. It really comes down to how confident you are that this person is going to go in the direction that you're.
Certain.
Okay. You could be a psychopath and put a 15 times multiplier on a guy that's like $1, but you could end up owing money. And I'm not, be very careful about multiplying on these lower price stocks because it does get crazy and it could add up very quickly. So I would avoid doing it on the smaller shares. But we could also talk about when you short a player, it goes the same way. So for example, if you have Aaron Rodgers stock, he's 160. We'll just say for arbitrary purposes here, right? And you short the player and you put a 10 times multiplier on it. And Aaron Rodgers, let's just say he moves down 2%. He gets injured and he moves down 10% or 2%. But you got a 10 times multiplier on it. Dave, how much do you lose?
Carry the 20?
20%. There you go. So
God.
multipliers.
And I said I was
tired. It's basically opposite day. So if you short a player, you don't really if you understand the stocks, you don't have to pay it. There's no calls and puts.
Got it.
There's no real extra risk. It's just opposite day. So if he does bad and you short him, you make money. If he does bad and you go long, you lose money.
Got it.
Vice versa. It's very simple. I'm here for you guys.
So with that information, it's very important information because of the fact that our first top mover last night is on the losing side, and that's Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones had himself a tough night last night. Okay, he got sacked 5 times. He went 20 for 37. He did throw that interception, which, by the way, I have to say, sidebar, when that interception happened, Trayvon Diggs ended the game, I had Giants fans, a whole row of Giants fans behind me, and be like, "Yo, hit the ground, hit the ground." I said, "All right, well, they're going to replay it." And they're from a live perspective, you don't know what they're doing on ESPN or wherever the game's being broadcasted. And all of a sudden, he's like, "Yeah, it definitely hit the ground, 100%." I was like, "Well, our offense is in the huddle right now, so you might want to recheck your thoughts." But anyway, Daniel Jones has himself a bad night. Now, when you're talking about shorting, sacked 5 times, had a bad game. There were multiple articles over on Mojo saying that might be the best time to get in on Daniel Jones. Clearly, those are the guys that have the faith that his skill set, meaning his running ability, which, by the way, underrated. If he gets out loose, he's loose and he can go, right? And that's fine. But that's when he gets out and he gets loose. Last night had himself a tough day, and he drops a little bit here. So if you shorted a Daniel Jones last night on all the multipliers they were offering, you lost. I mean, you gained a little bit.
I'm not going to press the panic button on Daniel Jones just yet. I expected this game to be a defensive-minded game. Like these offenses weren't going to get much going. Dallas defense is good, and they know that they have to step up with Dak Prescott out. Speaking of Dak Prescott, we'll get to him. I got a question for you a little bit later.
I'm sure.
But the defense on the Dallas Cowboys defense, they force a lot of turnovers. Daniel Jones has had that issue in the past. You expect it to resurface from time to time. They didn't play great teams in weeks 1 and 2, so they had a little bit of a wolf tickets maybe surrounding that 2-0 record. I also think that Daniel Jones isn't somebody I would go along on right now, but I can understand why Giants fans aren't going to push the panic button, nor should you push the panic button. But if you invested in Daniel Jones already, there's no reason why one game against a really good defense should move you off of that.
Well, the one thing I will say about going forward with Daniel Jones is each week the Giants' offense has scored less points. They've scored their most points in week 1. It went down a little bit in week 2, and then went down again in week 3. So the offense is not, what's the word? Humming, like we said yesterday about the Eagles or something like that. But like I'm looking at Daniel Jones now. He's still a young quarterback, right? He's on his 5th option year or 4th, whatever it is. But what I'm saying is the talent around him right now is no bueno. Like
you saw
they're
Kenny
all
Galladay,
injured.
$71 million. The ball's bouncing off his face mask. Guys like that.
Shepard goes down on a non-contact injury. We don't know what that's all about yet.
That was very hard to see at the last.
Bro, he
play
was
of the
jogging.
game.
He was jogging. I don't understand. Like again,
very hard to see.
We're not doctors. We only play them on TV. But like I'm looking at it like, oh well, if it's non-contact, then that means whatever you had, he dealt with an Achilles last year.
It looked like an Achilles the way he
and that's what he dealt with last year. So that sucks for him. But Daniel Jones is hard pressed now to find some targets because you got Tony, who I didn't even see his name.
No, he didn't play.
He didn't even play, right?
No, he was not on the.
That's incredible to me. Like what are they
he's
doing?
injured. He's dealing with an injury.
He was
ruled out.
Scratch.
He was ruled out. No.
All right, good. Well, in that Wan'Dale Robinson, what you could see on the bottom of your screen as this the scroll goes through, his stock is rising a little bit because he'll be back soon. The stock of Sills, he seems to be somebody that you could talk about, but then like you lose this guy in injury, and it's tough sledding going forward. Their young tight ends are okay, they're serviceable, but they're not the stars that Daniel Jones needs, and that offensive line is not doing him any favors as of last night. So Daniel Jones, it's not the play for me, and I'm not just saying that as a hater, but I'm saying that as in general. You haven't really surrounded the guy with a lot of success options.
And I agree. The Giants, they need some weapons. Saquon looked really good yesterday.
He did.
Some burst. I don't know if he had that top speed, but he did create some separation on that touchdown
You
run.
would think that the place, like, they won the Super Bowl when they scored a touchdown.
I mean, that's
fireworks
that's what it's
and all
supposed to be, Dave.
I mean,
it's what do you,
I've never.
Should they sit
played
quietly in their seat?
No, but they
Give
played
me a
like
break.
15
Give
songs.
me a break,
15
bro.
sing-along songs after the fact that you scored a touchdown. I'm like, all right, act like you
have fun
scored
when
a
your
touchdown.
team scores. Act like you
Holy.
haven't, because they haven't scored many over the. Like,
This is
so
true.
You gotta,
So it is a win. It is a win there. But anyway, off of Daniel Jones, moving on to the the positives of the Dallas Cowboys offense, we start with one CeeDee Lamb. Now, while I'm all on CeeDee Lamb and he's been touted as this next number one receiver, and they trade away Amari Cooper for a bag of balls, and like it's just one of those things like he's being inserted, he's rocking the 88. I got a text from my dad after the first drop. Take that 88 off him right now. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, God. You know, like, let's not panic. But then I was like, you're right. I was so mad about the drops. But the kid redeemed himself in a big way. 12 targets. He catches 8 balls, 87 yards. And, of course, the one-handed touchdown, which he was basically saying, to Mr. Pickens, like, hold my beer real quick.
Oh, stop.
It was a great catch.
It was a really good catch, but he was not talking to Mr. Pickens on that.
But he was talking to him because he scored a touchdown.
Oh, yeah. But that... Let's pause on that one. But, yeah, that one that bounced off his face mask, that
rough.
Was tough to watch.
Those were rough. You experienced that in week 1.
I did.
Christian Watson was like, I got it.
It was troubling for me because I went all in on the CeeDee props yesterday. I was talking about CeeDee prior to the game.
And he was offering multipliers
yesterday, and I was all in on CeeDee, and it turned out well for me at the end of the day. But still, that would have really, really helped. I'm sure that green
spike was when he scored a touchdown.
It would have been a lot higher if he scored 2.
Listen, he was running down. I mean, he was wide open. It was tough to watch those drops. But Cooper Rush dropped him in the bucket.
Why did he look so happy?
That's another thing. I didn't being there. You don't know, and that's another text. I'm like, why is he smiling?
I get it, though. Come on. I get it. What are you gonna do?
No. It was the Aroldis Chapman nervous smile. Like, I can't believe I just did that.
Look, you're competing. You're out there. He didn't feel good about it, but what are you gonna do? You got to put it. You got to put it behind you.
Redemption is the name of the game. Yeah. So that's that. But Cooper Rush, another drop in the bucket of a throw.
So
what?
We have any more top movers? We do.
We do. We have Tony Pollard, and he's one of the most electrifying players on the field right now when the Cowboys offense is on the field.
I'm glad you corrected that.
13 touches. Shut up. 13 touches, 105 yards. The Cowboys rushed for over 180 as a team. Big chunk run. Like I said, the minute I walked in and sat in my seat, there goes the run. He goes, here's the biggest factor about this. And we know he's getting carries and he's spiking. And right now he is super uber cheap, right? $11.34 a share is very cheap right now. So the thing I have to tell all you people out there on the Mojo Market Report is this. We all know what Zeke is doing, right? He's running hard. I'm a Zeke apologist for the rest of my life, right? I'm waiting for it to keep going. And you know what? Zeke, again, last night, he ran well.
All right.
But hold on. Let me get to my point here. So Tony Pollard, the big thing about Pollard right now is that we saw the market shift when Russ Wilson got paid, right? Tony Pollard is on a contract year right now. It's decision time for the Dallas Cowboys at the end of the season. What do you want to do with Zeke? And how do you want to keep Pollard? You cannot let this dynamic player walk out the door, but you also cannot overpay like they did Ezekiel Elliott.
I don't think Pollard's going to demand an overpay, but I do think to keep Pollard around, they're going to have to move some things around, and you're going to have to see Zeke be willing to take a little bit less money next year, which I think is a very distinct possibility.
Right.
All that said, as far as the Tony Pollard stock is in terms of the Mojo market, I do like Tony Pollard as a player. I really do. I just think he is who he is. I don't think that I'm not on the faction of the Cowboys fans or even football fans that believe that Tony Pollard should take over the starting running back job for Zeke.
Not.
I believe that he's not equipped to do the first and second down work. And the reason why Tony Pollard is so effective is because he is the change of pace. And I'm not saying that he can't spell a guy in a game or two, but I don't know that he's going to hold up. Tony Pollard has dealt with his own share of injuries over the course of his career that have been nagging. In the limited time that he's played, to see somebody like Tony Pollard get 80 more touches in a season, I think that wouldn't be the right move. And for that reason, I think the Cowboys retain him for a better price than you might think, because I don't know that he's looked at amongst executives around the league the same way some Dallas Cowboys fans view him as the potential number one back. That said, I do like Tony Pollard, the player, and as long as he's in his Cowboys situation, which I hope he does stay for Mojo purposes, he's going to keep on staying in this role. He's going to have a nice spot in the offense. They use him well. And game by game, you're going to see him creep up, but he's not going to do too many things wrong. Outside of an injury, I think he's a safe, steady increase. So I'm a hold on Tony Pollard, no doubt.
All right. So if you are investing in Tony Pollard, hang tight. It's only going to get better from here, because every time he's on the field, something good is bound to happen. You know what's interesting? You brought this up when we were sitting in our office in pre, and you said there was more movement yesterday besides the game that we had to talk about, and there was one in particular that you wanted to touch on, and that's Deandre Swift. Now, we all know about his injury and how this could potentially be a week-to-week thing, but the plummet that happened to his price was significant.
Yeah. It's a week-to-week thing, but the reason why I think it plummeted so significantly is because the comments made by head coach Dan Campbell, where he's saying, yeah, week-to-week, he's probably out next week. They could almost guarantee that. And then there's another game and then a bye.
So they're going to hold him off.
So it would be really foolish to bring him back, rush him back week before the bye, and then have him re-injure it and sacrifice that potential 2 week more.
Do you know who he plays after the bye?
Right. The Cowboys.
The Dallas Cowboys. Mm-hmm. So that defense is going to be waiting for a fully recovered and refreshed Deandre Swift. But, looking at Swift itself, the kid is great. I think they have a good 1-2 punch over there with Jamal Williams as well. So they're going to be fine.
So let's talk about it, what this means going forward.
Yeah.
Going into this week, I expected the Detroit Lions to run wild all over the Minnesota Vikings defense, and they did. It just wasn't Deandre Swift. Unfortunate for my pocket because I went in on him as well. DeAndre Swift got injured. Jamal Williams stepped in. That offensive line moves people around. Mm-hmm. That Detroit offensive line is very underrated. They're going to start to garner a lot more respect. They do around the league already. That line moves people around, like I said. Jamal Williams is an immediate buy, and you might be able to cash in on him over the course of the next 3 weeks. I got to look at their schedule, but up until the Dallas game, I don't think they have any tough sledding.
Yeah, we'll see. But that is your top movers for today. As you said, like on the bottom of your screen right now, there are other movers that are on the move. Considering the fact of their situations, meaning like yesterday, for instance, Kenny Golladay, he didn't see the field. I mean, he was on the field. He didn't really see the ball. But when you look at a guy like Kenny Golladay, there was rumors saying that he could potentially be on the move, meaning traded. That's a heavy price tag to talk about. But in a new situation, you might get Lions Kenny Golladay somewhere else. So that's something to monitor right now, because as of right now, the confidence in one Kenny Golladay is very down on the Giants. But because of these injuries, maybe the target share does go up. So it's like a very fickle thing.
I feel like as far as him being moved, no team is going to take on that contract, and the Giants would have to eat a lion's share. They're not going to cut him because it would be too much of a cap hit. It's a newer deal. Kenny Golladay is stuck there. So if he's in the doghouse, he's going to have to work his way out through practicing well and catching passes in games and not letting them bounce off his face mask.
I agree.
Kenny Golladay.
Down. All the way down on Kenny Golladay. So we were talking about Cooper Rush before. I know you said you had a question for me before we move on to the quarterback conversation.
Does anybody want to talk about the quarterback controversy that's brewing in Dallas right now?
Not happening.
So Cooper Rush is now 3-0, the best quarterback in history of the NFL.
I mean, there's only a couple guys to do it, but
according to some,
I digress.
And Dak Prescott it was like the third quarter, and Dak Prescott went to the hospital and was like, "Could you take these stitches out?" Because as soon as the game ended, I got an update on my phone saying Dak Prescott may return week 4. Dak, settle down, buddy. I know you want to get back there.
What had happened was in the post-game interviews, Dak's back there because he's not on the IR, so he's joined the team. He's on the sidelines. Like, Dak made a point to shake everybody's hand, fist bump with the bad hand, and everybody's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, look, I'm fine. Look at my handshake. I'm good. Like, we're good." And I'm like, "Oh my God, they're gonna really rush him back." And I there's no controversy here. Okay, if you put that to bed, Dak Prescott's the quarterback of the Cowboys. That's it. Like that,
could I create a controversy?
You can do anything you want.
If we're talking about 1.3 million or 45 million, and I'm not talking about the.
We're talking about finances now here on the Mojo Market Report.
I'm talking about that's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
Not much better of an offense.
Okay. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Speaking of quarterbacks, there's one guy that's the focal point of New York right now, and his name is not Daniel Jones. It could be the return of the Zach Wilson might make his return. Now, what we heard from Robert Saleh yesterday is that if the doctors clear him, his doctors, not the team doctors are all like, yeah, we're all in, right? If his doctors clear him, he's ready to roll. He'll be making his Mojo Market Report, Mojo Market debut this Sunday. Now, there's a lot to kind of unpack with this, right? Because he's coming back with a significant price right off the rip and what it might do to this offense and this air raid offense, which I can call it an air raid offense because right now it's almost like a thanks for coming. But Joe Flacco's numbers, just so everybody's aware of what the Jets were able to do in the first 3 weeks, 58% completion, not the greatest, 901 yards. So he's put the ball in the air a lot, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, but the Jets are 1-2. So it's like, thank you, Joe, for coming. We appreciate your service. Zach, get your butt back in the huddle because this is a big, big step forward, step in the right direction for the New York Jets.
Yes.
100%.
So the Jets, I don't know what their usage was in the passing game week 3, but weeks 1 and 2 going into week 3, they were the number 1 passing team in the NFL by as far as attempts go, and maybe even yard. No, the Dolphins had them in yardage.
Dolphins had them in yards.
That's not something that you want to see the Jets be doing typically because they're not. It's just not good football. You're usually down when you're throwing 60 times in a game, or you're at least playing in a shootout. You don't want to get into the habit of doing that, but it's nice to know that they have the receivers on the outside that can do that in the event that they need to do that. And now Joe Flacco hasn't thrown for 300 yards in about 24 years, and he did it, I think, twice in a row with the Jets. So this is a good situation for Zach Wilson. And guys, look, just so we're clear, if you're a new user and you register now, there's a chance that you get up to $10,000 in Zach Wilson shares. So free
to sign up.
So it's like if you're new here, if you're new to the Mojo Market Report, welcome. First of all, thanks for coming. But also go on over to the Apple Store and download the Mojo Market app and get your free stock, get your free shares because it's a lot of fun. And it's the time is now. Year 1, he didn't do well. His stock price is still hovering around a little bit better than some of the quarterbacks of yesteryear for the Jets, which we'll get to in a second. But definitely year 2, this is the time. You're probably not going to see Zach Wilson's stock this low, maybe ever
bring
again.
that up real quick because I know there's something there's your stock as he's about to start, and he's up 0.33%, so about 3% really. So he's sitting there at $32 right now, and of course, Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore are also 2 guys to focus on because this is going to be a different ballgame. Now, Garrett Wilson's coming in. He leads the team in targets. He's tied for the lead in reception. So all of a sudden, we've seen the rise of Garrett Wilson, which is fine. The thing about Elijah Moore, is that he has the rapport with one Zach Wilson. So everything that we've been seeing out of Eli Moore, which is he's only been targeted 12 times in 3 games, which means 4 targets a game, which is not enough for a skill playmaker like an Elijah Moore. But I see this completely turning on its head when Zach Wilson gets there. It's only going to improve the stock price of every single person that's involved in that Jets offense going forward.
Well, it really depends on how Zach Wilson it progresses as far as year 2 goes. It wasn't great for him in year 1, but you expect that out of a guy that is 10 years old. I mean, he looks 10 years old. I know he's not, but you expect a little bit more of an improvement. And like I was talking about, there was a lot of who's going to be the one out of these 2 Jets talented Jets receivers. I agree with what you're saying in that there might be a little bit more of a rapport. And if you could add on to the fact that Garrett Wilson has been playing well, so he's going to garner the attention of the opposing defenses, no question about it. So as they look to take him out of the game, Elijah Moore could step into a really nice role and end up eating a lot underneath. I think that's a good situation. I love the Jets pass catchers. We haven't even gotten to talk right now about their running backs. They're both young. Breece Hall, I think Breece Hall has 2 games this season where he's had at least 10 targets. So double-digit targets, that's not what we expected out of this Jets team, and specifically that player. I expect it all to continue when Zach Wilson hits the field. I'm excited about it. I don't like to invest all of my money into one team, but I feel like it's going to be some fun going forward with this Jets team in particular because they're all young and they all have a role already, which is very rare for a team of guys that are all that age, under 25, and maybe look, even under 24.
In regards to, it's like, when should I do it? Should I wait for Zach Wilson to go out there and give it his all in week 1 or week 1 of his season and just, light up the scoreboard, then buy in? No. You got to do this right now, because you're never going to get him as low as you're getting him right now. If he has a great game, just to give you and put it in perspective, right? Tua, who leads the league in passing right now, I believe, after 3 weeks, 925 yards, 8 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions. Tua went up 16% in 1 week, and over the last month, he's went up 36%. So the movement of a quarterback when you play like a Tua, and I'm not saying Zach Wilson's going to throw for 900 yards in 3 games, but what I'm saying is the movement could happen relatively fast. So if you're going to do it, you got to do it right this second. Don't wait any longer for Zach Wilson.
I agree. And look, if you're on the flip side of this and you're one of those people that think Zach Wilson's not that guy, pal.
Not that guy, pal.
Then you go short.
Not
you
that
short
guy.
Zach Wilson and you can make some money on the other way around. Now, we were doing some math equations the other day and trying to figure out, like, how could you get a 100% return on a player, right? Obviously, the hard way would just to be he just doubles his stock in one game. That's not going to happen.
Jalen Hurts.
But you can do this if we've seen
With
a couple
multipliers.
guys. We've seen guys that have moved up upwards of 10% in a game. One game, one day. So if you put a 10-time multiplier on a player and he goes up 10%, you double your money.
That's called math.
That is called math, ladies and gentlemen. And for those people that are into this daily fantasy and things like that, the nuance about this product that I love is the fact that you don't have to set your lineup. You have a guy. If he does well, you have him. You don't have to make a decision.
What's so funny?
on it.
Somebody in MetLife parking lot, when we're going around, we're interviewing people and they're asking about the product. They're like, one of the guys was like, so if you invest in this guy, that means I can't, right? I was like, no. This isn't fantasy football. This isn't a season-long draft. Everybody and their sisters and brothers can own the same player and invest in the same player. So I highly, highly recommend you do it now. Now, when you look at Zach Wilson, right, it's time to kind of go old school, right? Because you got to wonder, what will Zach Wilson have to do to live up to the expectations of his predecessors, right? Of the guys that have made their names for themselves. And here is what I have to say. Zach Wilson right now is actually listed more expensive than guys that are already done in their careers. And you know what kind of careers they had. And I'm talking about Chad Pennington and Mark Sanchez. A little retro boom in here because, look, this is the final price in their careers. Chad Pennington, which I believe it was Mark Sanchez who went to the back-to-back AFC Championship games, right? So he had some playoff experience. He also fumbled off of somebody's butt and things like that, so understandably so. That's how they would have finished. If Mojo existed back then, that's the price that he would have finished. And Chad Pennington with a $28, so he compiled a little bit better on the numbers side of things. Okay, his statistics were a little bit better than Mark Sanchez's. But what I will say is that Zach Wilson has absolute potential to soar past those guys. Now, I do want to compare to other kings of New York just to see where Zach Wilson might actually fall on this spectrum. And we're talking about a guy like Phil Simms, who has a Super Bowl ring. He also, he went to a Super Bowl. He had decent numbers throughout his entire career. He finished with a $48 share price. Biggest one.
I want to shed light on how they get to these numbers.
Yeah. The biggest one, though, like I said, if Mojo existed and they did we have a whole spreadsheet that shows you all this stuff. Eli Manning, who is the king of all New York quarterbacks, if we're being serious, he finished his career with an $86 share price, and that's coming off of 57,000 yards. That's coming off of 2 Super Bowls. That's coming off of 2 Super Bowl MVPs. So Eli Manning is the bar.
Ton of picks.
A lot of picks. My question is to you before you explain it. Can you see Zach Wilson on the his trajectory, what it could possibly be?
I'm not going to project.
Yeah, you really can't.
I'm not going to project a 20-year career
And
out
a
of
2 Super
anybody.
Bowl
That
run.
is insanity.
Yeah,
The
it is
nature of the
insanity.
sport, things could end just like that. So
Yes.
no, Eli Manning is one of the toughest quarterbacks that ever played football. So no. Let's pump the brakes there. Zach Wilson's already missed 4 games this year. All right, or 3 games this year.
Whatever
So
it
no,
was, yeah.
Eli, it took him 81 years, and then Geno Smith finally got gifted a start. So no.
Oof, that'll
But
settle.
we talk
That's
about
horrible.
how Zach Wilson is already higher than a one Mark Sanchez or a Chad Pennington. And Chad Pennington carved out a nice little career. Mark Sanchez had a couple playoff runs, one really significantly deep playoff run. The thing about it is, to understand how these share prices currently work is Zach Wilson has his career banked value. That's what your floor is. So floor, career banked value.
Which is just last year's numbers.
Which is last year's numbers. You can't take that away from a player. It's career, it's banked. They have that. If they retire today, it drops to that, no lower, right? Mm-hmm. Anything else in the share price, what makes it go up from that point on is estimated value going forward, market projections. So it's how the market thinks this player is going to go, how much he's going to earn going forward. There's no guarantees there, but it's just a market projection. You add those 2 numbers, bank value, market projection, and that's kind of how you come up with the share price.
That makes sense.
If he retires, i.e. Testaverde, Pennington, there's no more chance to have future earnings. So the future part of that leaves. And then you're left with the bank value.
Okay.
And that's why you see a Zach Wilson higher. If Zach Wilson retired right now, he would drop all the way down way lower than those guys.
Very
and it would
true.
be bank value. Right now, Zach Wilson is just a high draft pick playing for an offense that's got talent around him that are all young. So there is a lot of reason to be excited about Zach Wilson. But not if you got hurt and he didn't play again. He's not going to stay there. So just to shed light on how that works, and you might be curious, like, well, how? These guys played a long time. Well, that's how. It's the prospect of Zach Wilson being able to finish higher than all of them, and that's what you're buying in on. That's what you're investing in.
I like it. I like the explanation. That's a perfect way to put it and a perfect way to end this one because, again, we're going to get the news, and this won't be dated by any stretch because we're going to get the news this week. Saleh said it this week. We're going to find out. If he doesn't go, my thing is right now, and this is not a bold prediction by any
Dr.
stretch.
Dave.
No. If he doesn't go, I would still buy right now.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Don't wait the week.
In fact, if he doesn't go and he gets ruled out, it's actually the perfect time to buy because I could guarantee you the market will respond and he will dip. And you could possibly, I said before, this might be the lowest price you ever get Zach Wilson at ever again.
Absolutely.
If you're a believer, that's potential. The only chance that it does go lower is without him playing. If he gets ruled out.
100%.
So it's almost like I'm sitting here like, hey, maybe,
guys like this and guys like Kenny Pickett and the quarterbacks, the young guys that are about to see the field again, get them out.
I am not investing in Zach Wilson just yet. I'm going to wait a little bit because I feel like there's some really solid plays out there still.
Since my portfolio has been booming, I would say that I'm going to invest in Zach Wilson. I think I've been smart within the Mojo market within the first couple weeks of its operation. So I'm going in on Zach Wilson. Let's do it. So for Dave Sturchio and Chris Gueci, this has been another episode of the Mojo Market Report. We hope you guys enjoy it. And tomorrow we're going to the bargain basement again. We're going to do some old school research. We're going to be doing a lot of fun things as this week moves forward. And already, believe it or not, it's crazy to say this, week 4.
Download the app.
Yes.
Trust me, you are going to love it.
Yes.
Download that app.
Everybody and anybody that I've shown it to is like, this is some smooth looking stuff. So credit to those who've designed the Mojo Market app. We'll see you guys tomorrow.